From the very first day I started interacting with my tree monitors, I realized that the more I let them initiate this interaction, the greater the effect it had on their socialization. I didn't want to use food, and I never wanted to have to pick them up. I wanted them to always come to me. I wanted every interaction to lead to more trust. This was my thinking and the general philosophy that I tried to apply to any type of interaction going forward with them. I always wanted them to have to make an overt action towards interacting with me so that each and every time they did, it only reinforced to them that the contact was their decision. This seemed to work pretty well, but the more comfortable the animals became with me, the more they wanted to come out onto me, and then eventually down to the floor. They wanted out, but I had a problem. How could I control this situation with them running around my living room while still maintaining my philosophy of a hands-off approach? The answer was simple. I just let them go. I quickly realized they weren't scared at all. They never spooked or darted. They had become accustomed to everything in my living room from the safety of their enclosure, and every bit of the trust we had built within the enclosure still remained within my living room. It was magnified even. It was a new environment for them to move around in, and I was literally the only thing they knew was 100% safe. I mostly left them alone, but sometimes I would help them accomplish whatever they were trying to do, like stepping in and putting my arm in between a gap to help them cross it. The more I helped them, the more they were inclined to take my offering. I never worried about them not coming back to me when I needed them to go back into their enclosures. I could always coax them onto me eventually. But I needed a way to convince them to always take my offers, and that day was coming. Eventually, the living room just became an extension of their enclosure. They had specific places they liked to hang out on these short adventures out. Their favorite place was on top of the Ajax enclosure, so I would always start them there. They really loved just laying around on the LED lights. By giving them the freedom to explore and never trying to corral them, they had become confident in this new environment and no longer felt the need to explore everything around them all the time. They mainly just moved back and forth between the enclosures. It was around this time that I had a breakthrough while watching them jump around. Once they had decided to perform an action like this, they would always lift their heads and swing it back and forth in some kind of preparation. I like to imagine it's some kind of last-minute calculations going on in their little brains, gauging the distance between the objects, the amount of force they need to apply to clear that distance, rotation of the earth underneath them, whatever it is. I came to realize that for some reason, during this preparation, they become highly suggestible to any other options presented to them. By only offering my arm during these short moments, I was able to increase the chances he would take them by a lot. According to my philosophy from the outset, I always tried to offer my hand to the side so that Ajax has to actually turn to accept it. I always wanted my assistants to appear as though it was their idea. So now I had a way forward, but I couldn't rely on these rare moments to imprint the sort of percentage of acceptance I wanted to see. Enter the ladder. One day I happened to use a ladder to change a light bulb in my ceiling fan. Later that day I was returning Ajax to the enclosure and he jumped to it as I walked past. I went to get my camera to take pictures of him, and when I got close, he jumped back to me. I immediately knew this was going to be it, but it took several days for me to figure out exactly how to use it. In the meantime, Ajax started climbing it on his outings and even learned how to commando slide down the corners. After watching him play on it for a few days, I came up with the game. Every time Ajax asked to come out, I would stop by the ladder on the way to the Ajax enclosure. I would usually drop him off on the step across from the platform. His job was to cross over to the platform and then jump to me. He could always opt out by sliding down the ladder. Whatever path he chose, I would take him to the LED light on the Ajax enclosure immediately after. He didn't get it right away, and at first I'd put my hand all the way up to the platform so that he could just walk right onto it. It was the weekend, so he could come out several times a day. By the end of the day, he pretty much knew what was up and was already jumping. Over time, it got to where he expected it and would even hustle to the platform, following me with his eyes as I made my way around the ladder just so that he could jump to me. I'm sure he was enjoying it, and this was just the behavioral repetition I needed to imprint the come to me behavior I wanted to be able to prompt from him. I tried many different cues over the course of this training, including just holding my arm out, wiggling my fingers, snapping, and even calling his name. A soft chirping noise I had used with him since he was a baby ended up working the best. He got so used to it, I didn't even need to prompt him sometimes. The latter only worked well for Ajax because he chose it. He was in a very heightened state of activation the entire time he was climbing around on it. While in the ladder, he had so many different options to choose from, climbing up, sliding down, crossing from side to side. All these choices extended the window of preparation in his problem solving, which I had already been using to inject my own options previously. It gave me a near endless amount of space to convince him to take my offers, and gave me more time to practice my techniques for presenting them in the best light possible. I had hoped that the more he chose my option over his own, the more he would do so when I attempted to inject them off the ladder in his normal day-to-day decision making. This would make it possible for me to control him more in my living room without him realizing what I was doing. The end goal was to get him to see me as the best possible option for most problems, which I realize sounds absurd, but even I was surprised with the results. So what was the result of all of this? Well, it definitely worked, and I'm fairly certain we both got a lot out of it. We still play on the ladder from time to time, but it's mostly just for fun these days. I can always get him to come to me now. And of course, jump. Needs the ladder. If I ask him to jump to me, he just does. He still responds to his cues. The best part is never having to use a ladder to get him down off of things. He usually has an immediate response to seeing my hand offered to him because of the behavioral conditioning that was instilled in him from the ladder game. Trusts me completely. And although he can't feel the same way about me, I absolutely love him. about kale? Well, I can get him to jump to me sometimes, and I can usually get him to come to me. He never showed any real interest in the ladder. Every time I put him on there, he would just slide off. I'm not going to force him to play with me if he doesn't want to. Maybe one day he'll change his mind. I'm not too worried about it. But if he ever does, I'll be ready. Here, so I'm going to show you something. Give you an example. See, Ajax is basking. You see how he saw me? I'm just walking past his enclosure. So now he knows I'm here in the room. Watch this. He's going to come and he's going to ask for me to come and let him out. So this is what I'm talking about when I mean like an overt action. So Ajax is asking me to come and let him out. He's realized I'm in the living room. He's like, hey, I want to come out. Come get me. So I come over. Come on. So again, every time you see me handling this animal, it seems like I have total control over him and that he's tame. That's not it. Like it's more I am pretending to be tame. I do what he wants to do. And since he realizes that, he's more likely to take my hand when I offer it to him, just because I'm always doing what he wants to do. So he's just assuming that whatever the hell he's thinking in his little brain at that moment, that I'm going to help him go do that. So I actually don't know what he wants to do. But you can literally like just watch what he's doing or feel him on your shoulder. He'll tell you where he's trying to go. He wants to go on my curtains. I'm not going to let him because it's pretty cold outside today. If he goes up there, he's going to start getting cold. But he wanted to jump to my curtains there. And again, you see how he's bobbing his head? I can step in here and I can control him in this moment because he's in the midst of making a decision. And if you offer him a better answer, he will usually take that.